Hey, what's up, Army peeps? It's your buddy Choppadong again. I'm going to try and do another video. We have a short baseball slate today, a lot of it in the afternoon, and only like 5 games tonight, so it's not really worth writing a whole article over just those 5 games. Great night for tournaments, great night to get into some stuff. I wanted to show you a little bit more about contest selection. We talked about last time with variance and the ups and downs and all that good stuff, but I also want to tell you a little bit about contest selection and baseball, and I talked a little bit about you need upside to cover the nights that you don't do so well, and you want to play a mixture of some leagues and some small tournaments instead of just cash games or whatever else. And I want to show you why, and I want to show you why it's so important to pay attention to the contests that you play. Everybody goes and chases the big dollar and wants to put $1 in a huge GPP and win $100 or whatever. I don't think people really understand how hard that really is, and they get frustrated. And it's understandable. They wonder why they just can't win or why they just can't cash or I must suck at baseball. No, you're focusing on perfection, man. And that's not going to happen in such a flawed sport like baseball where the best of the best fail the vast majority of the time. And again, like I mentioned in the first video, you're trying to put 8 players together that maybe reach base 40% of the time, and you're hoping they all do it in the same night, and they all do it multiple times, and they all do it with power, doubles, home runs, RBIs, stuff like that, and you're hoping that your pitchers go off. You're really asking for a lot when it comes to baseball, with all of the variance and volatility that goes within just one player from day to day, and you're trying to stack up 8 of them and hope they all hit on all cylinders. How often do you see even the Yankees or the Arizona Diamondbacks or Washington Nationals lineups these days, all 1 through 8 hitters crush in a night and go 3 for 3? You don't see it. Somebody's always missing. So why the hell you expect that out of your fantasy teams? That's what you're asking when you are trying to win a GPP. You're hoping to catch that one night of the year where all 8 of your guys go 4 for 4 with a home run or something. I mean, it's just crazy. But that's baseball, and so we want to reduce our risk, get into contests that give us more of a chance to hit the money. And that's not necessarily even cash games, because if you're not going to hit them 55% of the time and beat the rake, you need to get into games where you can win less than 55% of the time, but make up for all of those misses by paying you more than just double your money, by paying you triple, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times your investment to make up for all of those missed and failed shots that you're going to take. Because again, it's baseball. That's just going to happen. I'm showing you, as you're already, I'm sure, looking down last night, and kind of what I did. I had a pretty good night. If you get good at rostering guys that typically do well, some nights 3 or 4 of them fail, some nights only 1 or 2 of them fail, whatever, and therefore you have good nights and bad nights. And last night most of them connected, mostly because a lot of the big producers around the league didn't have such a great night, and so that allowed me to have my normal mediocre nights, my scores of 120, 130, 140, whatever, and end up really popping some good numbers while everybody else failed. I wasn't being contrarian on purpose. I wasn't trying to dodge ownership, or I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. And I think that people overthink that concept too, so maybe someday we'll get into that. But let's take a look at some of the contests and kind of maybe why we picked what we picked. You see some bad scores here. 40 out of 100, that actually would have cashed in a 50-50 league at 98. The cash line was around 95 last night. You can see this is a 22 out of 50. It barely got in. Let's see if I can find, well, there were a couple that weren't so bad, but 95 was about the cash line last night for 50-50s in the mix-up leagues. These are the mix-up leagues, don't get me wrong. I did do a traditional lineup last night too, just for fun. Put up a really good score there, again, because things just kind of broke my way. But I focus on these mix-up leagues because I think that they're a little bit easier to win. I think that the slate is new and people are not catching on as quick to the adjustments that they need to make. And that's more for VIPs in the DFS Army. I'm not going to share that stuff with the public because our VIPs are our priority here. Which go to dfsarmy.com and become one if you want the goods. But jumping into some of the 50-50s that I played, had some okay solid scores. Had one really good score here. 151 on the mix-up was nice. Got me third out of 100 in a 50-50. But I wanted to see, I'll see what it did later in other contests, because I'll do this too. I'm just trying to get a feel right now for what wins 50-50s, what wins small leagues, what wins bigger leagues, what wins tournaments, that type of stuff. The one score that I wanted to kind of point out, because I will play a lot of 10-mans and a lot of 20-mans. Why? Let's break that down. A 20-man league that pays the top 3 players pays the top 15%. That means you need to build a top 15% lineup to get paid. And winning it only takes a top 5% lineup, if that makes sense. In a 100-man league, in a 10-man league, 30% get paid. You're in a 1, 2, and 3. 3 spots get paid. That's top 30%. So in a 50-50, I need a top 50% lineup to get paid. In a 10-man league, I need a top 30% lineup to get paid. In a 20-man league, I need a top 15% lineup to get paid. And there are, of course, hybrids, which I love, the 20 pay 6s and the 15 pay 5s and all that, because I like getting into the top third to get paid and then starting to release more money as I win, as I do better. Now, the top end of those leagues are very, very flat. They don't pay more than about 6x or so, but they're good, solid ways to continually cash with mediocre to little better than mediocre lineups on a nightly basis. And that's going to really smooth out your variance if you play those leagues. The top 100-man leagues, the 100-man leagues, the top 12% pay. So I need a top 12% lineup. But to win it, I only need a top 1% lineup, 1 out of 100. So what I'm trying to do is focus on where these money lines are going to go. And what do I typically build? Do I build top 30% lineups? Do I build top 25% lineups? Now, you're not going to win these giant tournaments very often, because you're not going to build what's 1 divided by 2,320.001% or something crazy. You're not going to build that lineup very often. You are going to build these lineups a lot. Focus on this score right here, this 119.8 that finished third in a 20-man tournament. When I come down here to the 20-man tournament, the 119 got me $3. Okay, if I go to that big tournament that had 2,300 players in it, 119 would have got me the same $3, but it's all the way down here on page 30. Okay, now while I flip this to page 22, you'll see why I'm doing this when I come back. A score of 123 beats one more person and gets me from $3 to $5. What does 123 get me in the big tournament? 123, what's that, page 21 actually? Same $3. Okay, and how many people did I cruise past? 10 pages worth of guys? Okay, I know that's not what you're playing these tournaments for, but I'm trying to explain to you where you need to be playing to grind up bankrolls and to have more success. You'll have big success in these big tournaments once in a while, rarely. But you'll have good success in these smaller leagues a lot more often. It's not that hard to cruise past 1 player or 2 players and bump yourself up to even winning the thing. Let's look at what the 100-man leagues did here. The score that I had, a 129 and a 133, right? The 151 would have blown that away. But we go and look at the 129 and the 133. It only took a 137 to win. Okay? Now, my 151 or whatever, the 151.8, would have won this league going away. So, bummer, didn't pick the right league for that particular lineup, whatever. You win some, you lose some. But that's $25. Okay, that I probably could have had. What does a 191, where's my 191, or 151, what does the 151 get me in this big 2,000 person tournament? 151. Am I on page 10? No, I'm closer than that. Page 5? Closer than that. Page 3? Closer than that. Page 2. I'm on page 2 of a 2,300 player tournament with a 151.8. Would have only paid me $10. It would have won this league by 20 points and paid me 25. But instead, if I play just these big tournaments, I'm only going to get $10. And I'm going to be thrilled with this, but what I'm not realizing is what I'm costing myself. Costing myself a ton of money by playing these big leagues. Yes, you have upside to go even bigger. If we go to the next page, 151, let's watch the scores climb from there. To beat 2,300 players, 155, 160, 165, 170. So yeah, I'm only, 15, 16, 17 points away from winning $200. But I'm not going to do that very often. 151 was a hell of a score. It was a top 1% score. It was good enough to win this. A top 1% score last night was apparently 135, 140. So I'm way above a top 1%, maybe a top half, top quarter of 1% lineup, and it still only gets me $10. What would have been third place in another 100-man league. So hopefully the light's going on. I'm not articulating my point perfectly, but hopefully the light's starting to go on. Yes, you want some exposure to these big things because you never know when you're going to build the nut lineup, but it's just not going to happen very often. Most of the time, you're going to do great to get down in here into the 10x. The reason I use the 10x number is because a top 1% lineup in most GPP structures will get you about a 10x return, sometimes a little less, 8x, something like that. A top 1% lineup will win you 100-man leagues and $25. So if I'm putting up $1, why would I want to win $10, $8 when I can put the same lineup in a 100-man league and win 25? What's going to keep me around longer? What's going to keep me playing baseball longer? What's going to keep me playing football or basketball or any of those longer? What is easier to win? So while you guys are out there, brand newer players, are out there chasing all of these giant tournaments and GPPs, trying to strike it rich, the experienced players, the guys that have been around a while, are figuring out that these are easier to win if you want a 10x return. It's a lot easier to produce a top 5% lineup in a 20-man league than it is to produce a top 1% lineup in a huge tournament. And I get the same money. I'm going to produce a top 5% lineup a lot more often. Now, a top 1% lineup also wins these 100-man leagues. Why do you think you see me always playing 20-man, 10-man, 100-man leagues? This is where you win your money, guys. It's not sexy. It's not fun, to win a 20-man league and get $10 when you find out your score could have won you a big giant GPP. But you know what? That's just not going to happen very often. So if you put $10 on the line in a night, throw one of them in one of those giant GPPs and put the other $8 or $9 in these 10, 20, and 100-man leagues. That's how you win in MLB. If you need more strategy, more tips, more advice, whatnot, you can come visit me. I'm at Chapadong on Twitter. I'd be happy to talk to you and help you any way I can. I'm also a coach and contributor inside the DFS Army at dfsarmy.com. The link will be in the description of this video. And you might want to check out the VIP experience. We have content, we have spreadsheets, we have tools, we have all sorts of stuff that really will help you get better at baseball. You'll also get to talk with all of our coaches, me, Keith, Al, the content writers, everybody else that hangs out in the Slack channels and gives a lot of real-time advice. We're very open, we're very transparent. You can pick our brains anytime. So jump on in and come visit us at dfsarmy.com, guys. See you later.